Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. We're going to be talking about my favorite thing today, podcasting, how to not only be a great guest and how to get on people's podcasts, but we're also going to talk a little bit about, maybe you should be hosting your own podcast. And so please join me in welcoming Michelle Glogovac to our program today. Welcome, Michelle. How are you?
Thank you, Deb. I am so happy to be here. I feel like you're smiling. I'm smiling. This is going to be fun.
Now, it is a fabulous day. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Michelle Glogovac, I love, it actually is sounded out exactly like it is spelled. So Michelle Glogovac is the Podcast Matchmaker, a podcast publicist and host of Webby-nominated Read the Damn Book, Kitchen Briefs, Beyond the Campaign, and Burnt podcasts. Yes, folks, that was 4. She works with entrepreneurs, authors, and experts, helping them hone their storytelling abilities, grow their businesses, and elevate themselves as thought leaders. Her first book, How to Get on Podcasts, debuted in January of 2024. Michelle is also a wife, mom of 2, stepmom of 2, and a fur mom. That's me. She has her BA and MS in law and is the founder and CEO of the MLG Collective. So again, Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to chat all about podcasts.
I know. Well, you started your company, the MLG Collective, promoting podcasts way back in 2015. So, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
It was a total this fork, that fork, which way do I go? I always thought that I was going to be an attorney. I carried a briefcase in kindergarten.
Homa.
I was that child, professional dress up day. I was like, yes, give me the 2-piece suit. And that was why I chose going to UC Santa Barbara, because they had a law major for undergrad, but I needed to fund my way through college and I could walk to the airport. And so I got a job at the General Aviation Terminal where all of the corporate flight departments fly into. And I kept that until I graduated, and they gave me a salary and benefits. And so for 18 years, I sold jet fuel to corporate flight departments.
Interesting.
Totally unrelated. Yep.
But it paid the bills, like you said.
It paid the bills. And then I had 2 children back to back. My kids are a year and 3 weeks apart.
Oh.
And I was laid off. And I said to my husband, I don't think that selling jet fuel to keep the rich flying and saving the money is really doing something for our children's future, right, besides the financial aspect.
Limited.
Yeah. I said, I'm kind of done. Are you good with me just trying to figure something else out? And he was like, sure, let's have a financial goal of X amount a month. And whatever you want to do. And I dabbled in some social media because I was already doing that, some event planning because I did that in my corporate days. And I was like, none of this is going for me. And a woman from my first birthing class reached out and she said, I see that you're trying to figure out what's next. There's a life and business coach who's launching a podcast and maybe you want to listen. And I had no idea how to even listen. I was like, wait, what? How do we listen to a podcast?
What radio dial do we tune to?
Yeah. And so I found the purple button on my iPhone and I started listening. And she went on about how we all have a purpose and a passion. And I started promoting that on my Instagram of like, yep, I got to figure this out. And she reached out to me and said, you obviously like what I'm saying. Do you want to pitch me to be on other podcasts? And I went, that's a thing? Yes, I would love to do this. And this was early on. Podcasts have been around for decades, as you know. But the pitching part as a business was not something that people were doing. And I went in, both feet jumped into the deep end. I wanted to learn everything there was about podcasts. How do you create one? How do you host one? And I ended up producing her show, some other shows. But I fell in love with the pitching part because you do get to hear the stories of others. And I felt that sharing these stories, this knowledge, the expertise with other people on a platform that's free actually was beneficial and would change the world for better for my kids as well. And so that is where I went full force into only pitching, no more producing, launched my own show, which is now pivoted into 4 shows, and how we've gotten to where we are today.
I love it. And it's just one of those things that has grown and grown and grown. When I first started, people were like, podcasts? Like you said, we weren't sure where to go. My mother, it wasn't until we got her an Alexa where she could tell it to listen to my podcast that she ever figured out how to even do it. But I think that the thing that so many people are finally recognizing is there's so many. I mean, there are millions of podcasts. Now, granted, out of those millions, it's a much smaller number that are actually active.
Right.
So, don't just Google, podcasts and because you'll go, oh my God, there's bazillions of them. But there is literally, and I know that this is not, I'm not, making a false statement here, at least one podcast for anything you can think of.
Yes.
And so if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever, I mean, hobbyist, all of those things, there's a podcast that you can get on. But then of course the thing is, how the heck do I do it? And I love that you are the podcast matchmaker. The is all caps, right? It is the.
Yes.
And he is a trademark name. I mean,
It is. I own it.
Yeah. I tell people the Business Power Hour. It is trademarked. And so, but it is about the matchmaking. It's not just spray and pray. We all have that happen. So, why is it so important that it is a match as opposed to just, I'm going to go be on that podcast?
Because, essentially, as a guest, you are utilizing the platform of someone else's. It is their work, their time, their money. Yes, you put a lot of effort and work into this, and I know this as a host myself. So there's an expectation that, yes, I'm going to share my platform with you, but it's more than only sharing this recording. You're sharing your audience that you have built, that you have instilled trust in. And they believe that you're not going to bring some willy-nilly person on who doesn't know what they're talking about. And you need to make sure that that is connected, that there is a match, that the audience that you have created is the audience that the guest needs to reach as well. And I just feel it's so important to have that genuine connection to really, I hate the word authentic. I say if you use it, then you're not it.
Right.
And so you need to show up as yourself and to really give everything that you have, all of your knowledge, your story, whatever it is. And, that the host is expecting that from you.
Right.
And so it is important that you do this homework before you even pitch yourself, or if you're an agency, before you pitch the client, to listen to the podcast. I always think that it also takes 2 seconds to go hit those 5 stars. Like, what is it off of you?
Yeah. Telling me, oh, I just gave you 5 stars. That's nice, but.
Right. Just do it out of the goodness of your own heart. Don't. And I've got those pitches, I just gave you 5 stars and I gave you a review. And I'm like, well, thank you. But that doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get on this show either. Did you listen? And, to take those extra steps of listen to more than just the most recent episode.
Right.
I say that's lazy. Scroll down, see what other episodes there are.
There's got to be something that piques your interest.
Yes, that you can really relate to in your pitch. And this is all part of making that match, because I've made the match with my client already. I am not going to represent someone I don't believe in.
Right.
Period. There's always a Google deep dive. There's Zoom calls involved before we even get to that first pitch. And then we do the same thing with the hosts. Is this the right fit for the client? And there are some shows that I just won't pitch to because I don't agree with who they are. Like, that's the world we live in, but we want it to, it's a reflection of me as well. It's not just the client. It's me. It's my name that's attached to it too. And that's why I think it's so important to create real, genuine connections.
Right. And you are program 1,159 for me. And probably 200 of those are repeat guests, right? People that I really liked. They have a new book, or, I know them in real life, so I'm going to have them on again. But that's still an awful lot of just, people that I don't know at all. And it is very interesting, how I get the pitches, because I get the ones that I know they don't, what I really love are the ones that are, hi. They don't even put my name, which means, they're just, and I get it. Booking agencies are busy. But you're not going to be successful if you do that. And it's, in all of this time, and I've been doing this for a really long time, I think there's only been 2 where I got the pitch and I went, how is this a good fit? And I've always reached back out to them. And one was this woman who's actually a friend of mine now because she was on the podcast. She had written a book for kids about in vitro fertilization. Now, granted, it is my podcast. I can talk about what I want on it. I mean, and so there have been some times where I've talked about things that aren't exactly business. But I went back to her and I said, I'm a little confused. How can this be a business, pitch? And she came back and she knew exactly what she was doing. She had quit her job, but she was a marketer before she quit. And so she said, okay, let's talk about how I am promoting this book, how I'm pitching it. And so she did. She became a guest. And then there was another one that it was like, I don't get this one at all. And when I went back and said, I don't understand how this could possibly pertain to a business podcast, they just didn't respond. And so it's, and just telling you, oh my God, I really love your podcast. I like that interview that you did with Michelle Glogovac. Okay. Tell me a sentence about it. Show me that you actually listen. Now, folks, you don't have to listen for more than about 5 minutes to find a nugget that you can put in that. And I get, and I'm assuming, Michelle, that you get about the same. I get probably 5 pitches a day. Yeah.
And some days it's even more because there's multiple shows.
Right.
And you'll love this. The show, Read the Damn Book. I interview authors, and yet I get pitched with people who don't even have a book.
Right. You're like, and give me the basic information, but don't just try and stroke my ego to stroke my ego, because I am a smart person and I figure that out. And I get probably one of those a day where it's oh my God, you're the best host ever. No, I'm not. Thank you. But, and so, that is, and I'll be honest, that is where 99% of the time, the booking agency is going to get it right. When they don't, I can tell that it was just cut and paste. And I really like it when somebody pitches themselves to me. Now, I have hired a booking agent to pitch me to talk, and be a guest. And so I get it. But, if you say, hey, I'd really like to be on your podcast, it means they did a little bit of research, and I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And I think, when you share of yourself within the pitch and you really get personal.
Right.
And one of my earlier pitches I did for a client, I always love a deep dive on the host. And I went on this woman's website and I saw that she loved wine. Her husband loved whiskey. They had Irish twins as well. And I included all of this in my pitch I just think it's great how many similarities we have, together. And she came back and she goes, well, not only do I want your client, but I'd like to interview you too.
Right.
And I hadn't even pitched myself, but I gave of myself.
Right.
And I think that is so important for people to do and recognize. And that's why in our pitches, Allison, my teammate, or myself, we share of ourselves too. It might not relate to the client, but we can say, hey, this is what I got out of that episode. And that's the important part.
Right. Yeah. And like we said, folks, it's 10 minutes. You are not listening to, 40 hours worth of their podcast. You can probably pick something up between listening a little bit and AI and, stalking them on social. You can pick it up pretty fast, something that is going to, I was about to say be authentic. but something that shows that, yeah, it's, and okay, let's, talking about that, AI pitches. Oy. Oh, and I've gotten them from agencies and I've gotten them from individuals.
Oh, yeah.
And I get we're busy, but I'm not gonna, and my favorite, and I've had this happen 3 or 4 times where I get word for word the same pitch from several different people. So I'm not quite sure how that's coming about because I went back and I compared them. I'm like, wait, this sounds very familiar. And it's the, hey, just wanted to do, and then and usually I'll respond, and I respond to everybody, even, the very, very few that it's not a good fit. And I say, thank you so much. You do sound like a great guest. We're booking X far out. And so Kim will be in touch when it's time to schedule. And Kim is who does all of that for me. And, and then like a day later, I will get a, hey, just wanted to move this back to the top of your inbox.
I can't stand those.
Then they get, then they go to Kim, and I say they go on the absolutely not, no. And I had one guy, I went back and I counted. I got 8 pitches from him in the span of about 10 weeks. And it was all the, hey, and I felt like and it wouldn't have done me any good to have communicated to him because clearly he was not reading any of it. But, I wanted to just say, dude, if you're going to hey me, I'm going to dude you. Clearly, you're not paying any attention. You have not personalized anything. And all you have done is annoyed me. And so you will never be a guest. You might be the best guest in the world, but you're never going to be there. And it's, it's that, as you said, it's that personality. It's okay to have AI help write your pitch. Take out the M dashes. We were talking about that before. And you're not the most incredible gifted person. No, because AI loves to do hyperbole. But personalize it.
Just put some effort forth. There was, I like to stalk other agencies too. I always want to see what's the competition doing so we can do it better.
Right.
And there was one that promoted, we use AI for all of our pitches. AI. And I went, really? Like this, it feels gross to me. And so I put into ChatGPT that I was pitching myself to myself. And I just said, you know who I am, and I'm pitching myself to this podcast. It was my own. It made up some crazy stuff about me that I'm like, that's not me. I've never been in that magazine. I've never done this. It was completely wrong. And so I thought, well, why would you as an agency be using this if it generates such horrible results? And who's actually saying yes to you?
Right.
And who's paying for that?
Yeah. And that's the thing, because when we are working with a booking agency, we are paying them. I mean, it's like a PR firm, marketing, whatever, we pay them to do this. And that obviously varies from agency to agency. And there's, all sorts of different things, that go into it. And so I do encourage folks to, kind of check some things out. But yeah, it really is a simple process when you get it down, but it comes back to what we were saying. Figure out where the best fit is, whether you're pitching yourself or you're having an agency pitch you, and like I said, doesn't matter what you do. Podfest is held in Florida every year, and it's, 8-hour drive from here. And so I've gone a couple of times. And I was talking, I've paid enough to get to go into the private rooms, right? And so I was in there talking to this one young woman. We were just, in there. It's the private room is really cool because they always have beverages and food. And so we're in there just kind of, and I said, so what is your podcast about? And she immediately turned like 900 shades of red. And I thought, oh, this is bizarre. And she said, well, I'm going to tell you. And she said, but I don't, and she said, usually I wait till we're a little further down in the process. She and her partner, their podcast was about S&M. Oh. So yeah, that was my response. Oh,
literally something for everyone. Okay, then. Yeah.
And they actually do it under a pseudonym, because they know that their employers and their clients probably would not like that. But like I said, there's a podcast out there for everybody.
There is. And that's the beautiful part of it. Whether you want to be entertained, you want to grieve, you want to learn about a business, you literally anything and everything, it is out there.
Right. And when you're researching it, part of what you want to research is, I mentioned this, there are millions of podcasts, but many are not active.
Right.
So make sure that, that you're not pitching to Never Never Land and that they are actually still broadcasting. I mean, that's one of the first things to be doing.
And that they take guests.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This is the part that I think, and many people don't understand that just there may not be a single guest. And we have clients, they will give us a wish list when we start working together. Who would you like to be on? Who do you want to be interviewed by? And we vet them and we'll go, A, this one doesn't exist. B, this one doesn't take anybody. Have you noticed they're 20-minute solo episodes? So no, we won't be pitching them. But that is part of the research and the work that goes into it. I think a lot of people also think, it's not that big of a deal to pitch and to get these emails out. But if you do it the right way and do your homework and personalize every pitch, it is a lot of work. And that is literally why people hire us, is because there's so much time that goes into it if you do it the right way.
Right. And folks, be realistic also, especially if you're either just starting out or something smaller. You're not going to get on the biggest, best podcast in the world for your subject matter at first, many years ago. And I actually still do have my own PR marketing firm. And I had a guest who came to me, this is before podcasting. And she said, I want you to pitch me to be on, to do media pitches, right? So to get interviewed in newspapers and things like that. And she said, and I want you to get me on Oprah. That was when Oprah was still on and Oprah did the book of the whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. Where else? Oh, no. Oprah. I said, no. You're not going to get on Oprah without, as they call it, social proof, right?
Yep.
And that was it. I mean, she wanted to pay me to get her on Oprah. And so I tried to explain, honey, you need to start small. Let's go with our local market. Let's get you on here. That was Denver. And at that point, there were 2 newspapers, 5 TV channels, and I don't know how many radio stations. And she had a topic that we could pitch to all of them. I mean, it was a pretty broad topic. And I said, and then we'll get bigger and we'll get bigger. And then, somewhere down the road, we'll pitch to Oprah. No, I want you to pitch me to Oprah. Well, I mean, I could fill out the stupid form because I think there was a form,
Right.
But I told her, I said, more importantly, if Oprah were to, because you never know, lightning might strike, right? And that was the guest they were looking for. I said, could you fulfill the book orders? And this was before print on demand through Amazon. I said, could you fulfill the book orders if Oprah said, hey, buy this book? Because we're talking probably 20,000 books at least. Do you have that many in your basement or your garage? Well, of course she didn't. And so be realistic. It's and let's be honest. One of the things is, if you get on a podcast that maybe has listenership of 100 people, if those are the right 100 people, that's important.
That is what I always say. I go, I get a lot of, I want to be on Joe Rogan. And I get, well, why? Like, why? Come on. He's got his number one. I go, right. But are all of his listeners going to actually want to hear what you have to say? It's like pitching to a bunch of car mechanics when, you have a beach read or something.
Right.
They're not going to buy your book.
Right.
This isn't the right match. That's, again, where that match comes in. Go smaller to 250 listeners who are all going to buy your book versus 1 million who nobody's going to care what you have to say.
Right. And being able to say, I was on Joe Rogan. No.
Flag that I want to wave, okay?
Yeah. Or any of the big guys, because then usually the next question is going to be, tell me how that went. Tell me, what you got out of it. Things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And, we've mentioned book launch several times, and that's probably at least half of the pitches that I get are, hey, we're working with so-and-so and they have written a book about.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it's interesting, I'll interview them. And which I usually do, right? And I've had some fabulous guests. I've made friends from, some of them. And I figure I'm always learning something. And so, hopefully my listeners are too. But then the thing that I really hate, and you talk about this, is then you never, ever hear from them again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've pitched their book, they've done the podcast, and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah. I compare it all to a dinner party where we've been invited to your home. You have prepared us a wonderful meal.
Right.
We are present and we're not on our phones or answering emails on the side. And then what happens after the dinner party? Well, we should say thank you somehow. And in the case of a podcast, our thank you is by sharing the episode everywhere, repurposing it into marketing content, tagging you, collaborating with you, sharing it with our newsletter subscribers.
Connect
That's
with me
what
on
should happen.
Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be a sharing. And, there sometimes this takes an explanation for clients of, but self-promotion, it feels gross, or
Yeah.
there have been times, in the world where, like during the pandemic, especially, I'd have a client go, oh, I don't feel like I could promote that I was interviewed when, the world shut down. And I go, yeah, but you have to remember that this is something that you're supposed to be giving other people.
Right.
You're sharing your expertise.
Right.
So it's a gift that you are giving, and you're also saying thank you to the host. So you have to do it. Don't look at it as self-promotion. Look at it as, you don't know more about me or what I do. And so this is my way of letting you in
Right.
on all of that, to share how you can do X, Y, Z on your own. But you're also thanking the person who just opened up their home to you,
Right.
who paid for that episode, who took the time out of their day to talk to you and offer you their platform. This is the least you can do, is to share with your audience about this show.
Yeah. I'll be honest, when I have been a guest on someone else's podcast, I don't always remember to share. But usually that's because it's not immediate, right? Like you and I are recording this 2.5 weeks before it actually airs. I've done some where they've said, hey, it's going to air 4 months later. Okay, I'm cool with that, but I don't keep track. And so when it actually goes live, I either need them to send me an email, hey, it's live,
Right.
Please promote it, or they tag me, because then I pay attention. If you
Right.
tag me in the post, and I am only on Facebook and LinkedIn, but if you tag me on those, then I will immediately share. But remind us, because I do a lot of interviews, and sometimes, especially if somebody's doing a book launch, they've done hundreds of interviews. And so they're not going to remember to be checking. Now, I do keep a spreadsheet. I try and keep track, but no, just be that good host and say, oh my God, hey, Michelle, here's the stuff. It went live today. I've tagged you in our posts, to make it easy for you, because then you just have to share it. And so, but yeah, it is kind of that mutual admiration society.
Yes, yes. And it's so, I do the same for my guests. They get an email with every link, they get clips, they get graphics, they get all the things, and then we collab too and we tag. And it's amazing how many people will come to me and go, wow, that's the most I've ever received from a host. And I'm like, this is what we create. So why wouldn't I share it? And yet part of what we also do is check on every interview that our clients have recorded, once it's recorded, to see if it's gone live, because the host doesn't let anybody know, not the guest, not us. And so then we have to reach out. Goes back to the time and the effort it takes to say, hey, we saw it went live.
Right.
Do you have anything that the guest can use?
Right.
Bare minimums. So you can't complain that no one's sharing them if you're not giving them the assets to share.
Right. Or worse, it didn't go live. I was going through, so on my website, so I guest on podcasts to talk about dealing with cancer, and especially as a business owner, and so I keep a spreadsheet on that, and there were 5 where over the last year or so, I did the interview and then nothing. and it was like, okay, did they just not like me? Well, that's possible. There was one that had stopped production, so,
Mhm.
that happens. But the others, it was just crickets. And if something didn't go well, let the guests know. Hey, we just didn't click. And in all of my 1,159 episodes, I think there's only been 2 or 3 where I got done and I went, "Oh." Now, I still put them out there, right? Just because I didn't feel it didn't mean that it wasn't a good interview. But yeah, every once in a while it's just, "No, this did not go the way we wanted. Thank you for your time." But yeah, that's always kind of weird is when everybody goes to the effort of doing the interview and then nothing happens.
Mhm. I've only had 2 in my now since I had 1 podcast and I moved to 4, I started the count over again. So, I think I'm around 500 right now. And I've only had 2, one in which after recording, the guest said something on social media that was so
Oh,
outlandish
dear.
that I wrote and said, "Absolutely not. I will not share what we recorded." The other one, after we recorded, I was like, that did not feel right." The next day, she emailed me and she said, "I didn't feel that went well. Could we re-record?" And
Okay.
okay, yes, and she had some things that went on that affected her recording, and so the next time it was like, "Oh, this is how it should have gone," and it was mutual. I think that if that does happen, the other person feels that way
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So, yeah, so if you're a guest and you feel like that didn't go as you wanted, don't feel that reach out and let the host know because chances are you
They
felt the
felt it
same way.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one not long ago where the first 30 minutes were fabulous, and then she shut down, and I started getting one-word answers. And, and those are always really fun, especially when we've got an hour, right? And I am, sometimes I'm, interviewing people who are used to being interviewed by media, so they're doing
Mhm.
short, and so then "Well, now tell me more." But she shut down, and it was I mean, I still aired it. It was but, I should have gone back and said, "Was everything okay?" Because the sense I got was something had happened.
Mm.
She got an email that said, "Hey, this," or whatever. And there have been times where it's like, I mean, I think one of the funniest ones I ever did one time. Now, I do not heavy edit. I leave in the uhs, the ums, the knows because we're chatting, but sometimes, we have to take, stuff out. And I was interviewing a guest, and she's getting the uh-oh look, right? And and all of a sudden she says, "Oh my god, I'll be right back." Oop, and she's gone. I'm like, "Okay." So I hit pause. I'm thinking, "Yeah, okay. Something has happened." And she doesn't come back, and she doesn't come back. And I mean, it was a couple minutes. But it seemed like a long time. And then I heard small child cry. I thought, "Oh, okay." And so, she came back, and it was 5, 10 minutes. I mean, it was not a long time. And I said, when we were still on pause, "Is everything okay? Do you understand this is not, we can either start over or pick it up another day, whatever you want." And she said, "Well, I watched her fall down a flight of stairs." I said, "Oh my God. Really, really, we do not have to do this." And she said, "It's okay. She's over in the corner with an ice pack." And out of my mouth came, and you will appreciate this because you have a little brood. Out of my mouth came, "Not your first child, is it?" But, things happen. Your power goes out. Your internet goes down. And there are just times where you get partway through and you think, "This is not working."
Yeah.
Now, I have a business podcast. It's but there are a lot of podcasts and obviously some of yours that are much more emotional and you want to have a different level of discussion with somebody. And so, how do you kind of work through those, especially if it's not going the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, I mean, I've cried on some of mine, and one of them, I interview political candidates and politicians, and yet we've cried. Uh, you
Because you're
know?
talking about their personal stories.
Yes,
Mhm.
and, so I think crying comes up sometimes. I had one interview early on where
Mhm.
I could visibly see her, similar to stories you just shared, in which I'm like, "She's just not into this,"
Right.
and I had read
Mhm.
her book,
Mhm.
and so I thought to myself, "Well, which part" you know what? I'm gonna bring up her father because her
Mhm.
father's and there was a
Mhm.
part in the book she visibly changed and was there. And it was just that moment of, oh, okay, this is important to her and she's going to be more open if we talk about this. And I think that's part of our job as hosts is to not just read that body language, but to be able to prepare in advance so much. And I know you prepare extremely well to have this information and this background. And that's why I read every book. If you were on my show and you've written a book, I have read every word of your book. That way we can talk about it. That way I can pull things from it and get to know you. And, that's all part of the preparation and why so much effort goes into being a host of a show. And that's, being informed. It's the biggest part of preparing for these conversations, whether it's a book, whether it's the issues that are going on in the country, whether it's, anything else of whoever I'm going to interview, I need to do homework on it. And that's part of that preparation and not being distracted by, my kids are at school. So luckily I don't have them, but they were 2 and 3 when I launched my show. They knew a closed door, mommy's in the closet.
I like the ones that they told me, I have a sign on my door and it says, unless you are bleeding a lot, do not interrupt.
Yes. Mine knew. There's probably one episode, and we actually left it in, where they came in, they're like, Mommy, are you done? But that was it. They've grown up knowing this. This is what I do. We're quiet. They're kids. You can train them. And I say that tongue in cheek.
I was interviewing somebody one time and her daughter came in. So we interviewed the daughter. And it was like 2 questions or something like that. But I said, does she understand what mommy does? And, and I said, and I wanted her to see that. And it was actually really fun. I liked doing that. And then, we shooed kid back off. But, things happen. I've had cats. I had one guy in a bathrobe appear one time. They had a shared printer. And now luckily bathrobe was tied and, there was nothing that we were going to have to edit out, but that was funny. And things happen. And I think part of it is we're human and that's okay. And so getting emotional, even on a business podcast is okay. And, I interviewed a woman and I've talked about her several times. She started a franchise business of indoor putt-putt golf. And it's called Monster Golf. And it was, up in New England where they have lots of snow. And so they had to do indoors. The monster was a reference to her father who had sexually abused her starting at the age of 4.
Oh.
And yes, I was like, oh. And she had a book. Now the book was okay. I read the book. And the most detail she said was the monster came into the room. But that's where the monster came into it. And so it was part of that story. And then I interviewed someone, and it was actually a personal friend of mine who wrote a book about what happened with her son. And she's a PR person, and I've known her for many years. And the son committed suicide. And she started an initiative. And then, so we talked about all of that, but we also talked about losing her son. And so, and because I knew her, now I never met the son, but we did get a little snuffly, and so things like that happen. But there's also, like I've had guests who have just won big awards and they're so emotional about, that's okay to be snuffly about that too.
Yeah. As you said, we're all just human.
Right.
And I think you also bring up a great point of this is a business podcast. And when you're pitching yourself, whether you have a book, so I love this with people who have a book, nobody's interviewing the book.
Right.
We are interviewing you, the author. So what is it that you can talk about? Do you have, maybe you have a fiction book, but you have a business and you can talk about the business. And then guess what? Deb's going to say, so I understand you've also written a book.
Right.
And then you can tie in the book somehow. But the interview can be about you, about what you do. It doesn't have to be, I'm pitching this book and this is all we're going to talk about. We all have life events that have gotten us to where we are today. So be willing to talk about all of those things and they will all tie back into whatever it is that you are promoting or hoping to share. So I think that's important to recognize of, you have a lot you can talk about.
Right. And I love that you mentioned this, because one of the things to remember is this is not a ShamWow commercial, right? You've got a book, you've got a product, you've got a service, you've got whatever. And, the conversation about it has to be organic, and back to that word authentic, right? The second it starts turning into, but wait, there's more. No.
And if you order now in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. We are pitching ourselves. That is why we're on podcasts. And so that's going to come out, but it's not, it's not the big overriding factor. And I have had a couple people where they've started down that path, and boy, I stop them. But that's where it has helped, as you said, to have done my research, because then I can just gently steer them back into the, okay, well, I know in your book you talked about the fact that your first business was when you were 6. Tell us a little bit more about that. And then, of course, they, or whatever. But yeah, and always remember, you are the guest in their house.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And as the host, I ask, I require you to provide X, Y, and Z. Provide X, Y, and Z. Now, if we're going to talk about your book, you better provide me a copy of the book. Digital, please, because I've been doing this a long time. I'm overwhelmed with all the books that I have. But if you want
you can't see my floor right now.
I know. But if you want me to talk about your book, I need a copy of said book. You sent me a digital copy of your book. And so, but I mean, I've had guests who said, I'm an author, but that's not what I want to talk about, so I'm not sending a copy. Okay, that's cool too. I might list it in the show notes. But yeah, and I've had some who have. I had one time who didn't provide me the website link. I was like, and don't make me have to search for these things. I am more than happy to do my research, but don't make me play hunt and find, because I don't play hunt and find well. I get annoyed.
Yeah, I always say never give the host homework.
Yeah.
You should hyperlink everything in that pitch email. If I have to go Google you because you didn't, then no. And I don't have time for that. I think that's something else that a lot of people don't realize, is that we have jobs. We are not sitting here pining away. We need guests. We're not waiting here for your email. We're not. So that's another reason not to follow up within 24 hours or within the week, really.
Hey, did you get my email about Bob?
Yep.
And when I respond, and now it's okay to follow up if I didn't respond, because that meant it went into spam or I wasn't paying attention or whatever. I'm fine with that, but don't do it the next day, as you said. Maybe wait a week, because it might filter back to the top of my email. But yeah, try not to make me feel guilty. I've had some people who have been, you didn't respond. Why didn't you respond? Well, okay, I'm busy. Or I've been known to tell people I was on that rare thing called a vacation. And then usually I get back a mea culpa, right? But yeah, we're people, and you're dealing with people. You are not dealing with the Business Power Hour. You're dealing with Deb Creer, or Kim, my producer. Remember that, and just, keep it civil. And on the off chance we say no, it's not the end of the world, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows down the line, maybe it'll come back. And I think that at this point, there's certain people who have pitched to me, and I'm sure to you as well, that especially publicists who work with authors, they know what I like. And so those are much easier for me to respond yes instantly, because there's that trust that's already been built.
Right.
And I can go, oh, I see that name. Yeah, I'm going to love that book. Go ahead, send me the book. Versus others who, okay, now I got to go look and I got to do some more research, and that's going to take more time. And if it is a book, everybody, give us plenty of time, because we need time to read it.
The night before, no.
Or it's publishing next week. Can I get on? No. This takes so much time. And if you look at my shelf, the stuff behind me is what I've read. It's the stuff that's on the floor, that's in the rolling cart that I have yet to read. Plus, my Kindle is filled with advanced copies. And I get, oh my gosh, I have so many I need to read and I need to do this. I feel guilty and I shouldn't feel guilty.
Right.
But, be patient with us, please, and give us time.
Right.
We know you have digital copies you can provide 4 to 6 months in
Even
advance.
if it's watermarked. Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yes.
cool with it saying, yeah, I can read around the word draft. And do not expect that I will pay for the copy of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Pet peeve.
Oh, yes.
Now, I'll be honest, there have actually been several where they've sent me the digital version. That's great. I love that. I liked it so much that then I did buy it.
Same.
That's very different. But
Yeah.
do not, because I've had people who have done that. They have given me the link to Amazon. And now sometimes the link is to Kindle, right? That's cool. I'm fine with that. I pay for whatever I get and I can download however many, so I'm not paying for it. But yeah, do not just send me the Amazon link and expect that I'm going to pay for it. This is not a
No.
fundraiser for you.
No. And you're going to get book sales out of the podcast interviews. So no. But I've done the same because I want the book on my shelf, because I want to remember that I
I
interviewed
want to
the
dog
author.
ear it and do all
Yes.
those other things. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. But definitely be ready to, and I say this to every client, it's in my book of be ready to send that digital copy.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah. Now, I did have a guest, and she was on not long ago, Elizabeth Cottrell. And what she talked about, and I just love this concept, is handwriting, pen, paper, thank you notes, things like that. And so and that's what her book is about. So she had sent me a copy of it after the interview. Now, I don't know if it was just that she and I really hit it off, or if this is what she always does, but I tell you what, I was very impressed with it. After the interview, she sent me stationery. So a little thing of, blank note cards that now I can send out, and another copy of her book. And she said, just sending this in case there's someone you'd like to give it to. Now that's nice. That's a big expense, right? But and because by the time you buy the book, you buy the stationery, you pay the postage, all of that stuff, we're talking $20 or so. But yeah, it was like, ooh, this is pretty cool.
That's a nice touch.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Especially as I think handwritten notes and stationery are making a comeback after the correspondence.
Yes.
I had to find and dig out mine, and we read that for book club, and I gave everybody stationery because surprisingly a lot of my friends said, I have nothing to write on. I was like, let me go through my papyrus packages from the years that I've stored.
Stationery is now yellow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and handwriting. I mean, it's funny. 2 years ago, my mother passed away, and so on Facebook today popped up I have now sent out all of my thank you notes. I apologize to all of the people who taught me handwriting because it obviously didn't stick. But it's the thought that counts, right?
Right.
And even if you're just sending a thank you, an email, acknowledge that you had a great time, even if you didn't, right? Because you never know when you're, and I'm cool with getting, an email thank you. I ask my guests to do a LinkedIn recommendation. Some do, some don't. And I don't keep track, but that's just an easy way for them to show their gratitude.
Mhm.
But yeah, say thank you, send a note. Hey, we had a great time on this chat. Hope to do it again.
Leave the 5-star review afterwards.
Oh yeah, and so yeah, it's just really funny to do that. But yeah, it's again, but I think probably the biggest thing that I have learned over the many years is I'm not just talking to a guest. I'm talking to somebody who could become a friend. I'm talking to a business connection that I might refer people to. All of those various things, and it's not just I'm talking to Michelle on her podcast.
Right. We are becoming friends per se, and we're building a relationship because we're spending an hour together.
Right.
I always say it's like having a cup of coffee where we get to know each other, and that's why tears can come up. That's why we're sharing stories, so we actually make this connection of like we were just at Starbucks and saying, hey, how are you? Let's sit down and get to know one another.
Right.
And many of my guests have become friends that, we check in, and thanks to social media, you get to follow each other. But I think that's the beautiful part about being a guest and being a host is you make these connections you otherwise wouldn't. And as a host, I treat it as my selfish little gift of who do I want to connect with? Who do I want to learn more from? Who do I want to become friends with? Because I am that awkward person who says, I really like you. Like I genuinely would like to be a friend. Yeah, I like you. Could we up this level and exchange phone numbers? To me, that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
So, it becomes a friendship. It becomes, we know each other. Not a transactional 1 hour.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it. And so it shouldn't be treated as a transaction.
But I'll be honest, a good many are.
Oh,
yes. And that's the thing. And to me, it's like networking, right? You get 20 business cards, and yes, people still have those things. And 2 or 3, you think, wow, this is really cool. And that's fine. There's nothing against the other folks. And you had a great conversation with them then, but it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we said, this is a business podcast. I guessed on podcasts where we're going to be talking motivation, inspiration, because I'm talking about, surviving through having cancer 3 times. And so one of the things that they do frequently, and I'm fine with this, is they want to do a pre-chat, right? Are we going to bond?
Right.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, like you and I did our pre-chat right before we we're talking business. We don't have to know that we're going to become bosom buddies. Twice I have had people say, nope. And one, and I have somebody who books me, and one, we did the pre-chat, and I sent her a note right away, and I said, she's going to tell you no. I don't know what it was. We just did not click. And she did. She sent a note, and she said, nope. And that was fine. We're not going to be buddies with everybody. And then I had another one that I thought went really well. We had the interview scheduled, all these various things, and 3 a.m, the day of the interview, she sends me an email message and said, I've changed my mind. You and I are just not going to get along. And she told me why, and it was kind of weird reasons. And I thought, okay, she's not my people.
Right.
Not a big deal. And it happens, right? We go on a lot of dates before we find Prince Charming.
But could it have been even a no before having a one-on-one?
That was kind of the weird thing. It was like, did we not get along, or did she cogitate on it? I mean, like, one of the things that she didn't like is I use the term warrior. I am a warrior. I'm in the fight of my life, right? It even says that on my arm. And she said that was going to trigger people. Okay. And more importantly, I wouldn't mesh with her young audience. And I thought, well, you're older than I am, so that's a little confusing. And I went to several people who are a much younger demographic who are on a cancer journey. And I said, does that bother you? And to a person, it was the funniest thing in the world. They showed me their warrior tattoos. But yeah, I mean, there were just several things that she said she did not like. And I thought, and I immediately, now there were a couple little things that I pushed back on. But I did not try and talk her into it. Right. It was not going to work. And so, yeah, it was like, no. But, and that happens. And again, she was not my people. Not a big deal.
Right. Chances are you're not going to cross paths again. And if you do, hello, how are you?
Yeah.
Move on.
And I would doubt that she would remember me. But yeah, but that does come back to what we were saying at the very start. Is it a good match before you ever start the process? Now, these two, I think, were, but yeah, make sure you know who you're pitching to and what they want.
Yes.
Yeah. If they're a demographic, are millennials? Maybe not. I was on a program, Fabulous Women Over 70. And I said, you all do know that that's not me. I am not over 70. Because I thought, do I look that old? And they said, oh, it's okay. We have lots of younger guests on. I'm like, okay. But yeah, make sure you've got that match first.
Yes, yes. And I think, just Googling the person and the show, even if we're not talking about listening to it,
Right.
Google the person and you're going to be able to figure out whether you're the host or the guest. You'll be able to figure out, because I am sure that you have done interviews referencing Warrior.
Right.
So if she'd just done that, she could have saved some time.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
before that.
it was just very strange. Yeah, I mean, on my website, it says, fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. The warrior responds, I am the storm. And my logo is a warrior. I mean, it was like, okay, this is very weird. And I do get that maybe that is a triggering term, but that's how I describe myself. But yeah. Well, oh my gosh, Michelle. Okay, we do have to have you on again because I think this is such an important topic. It is a great way for people to get their message out there for relatively inexpensive cost. Certainly, not like advertising and all. And I do that. But yeah, so we definitely have to have you on again. But for people who are going, I need to talk to the podcast matchmaker. How do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
You can find me at themlgcollective.com or michelleglogovac.com. And I'm all over social media, probably too much. But Instagram, I am there multiple times a day at Michelle Glogovac. And we do podcast pitching, whether we have mini packages, we have full packages for authors, for business owners, everyone in between. And we just do the entire work for you. But on the website, there's also a bunch of free downloads. If you're just interested in doing it yourself. Yes, I give it all away. And of course, you can always buy the book, How to Get on Podcasts. And that also gives it all away for much less. Right now, I think Amazon's got the big spring sale. So it is much cheaper. So that is what we do. And then, of course, you can listen in on any of the 4 podcasts. I show up every week.
I love it. I love it. Well, this really has been so much fun. And I can't wait until we chat again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Share your story. Just be willing to share of yourself, because you don't know what one person's life that you can change by simply sharing, whether it's your knowledge, your personal journey, your story. You have that ability. And I really believe that if everybody took that one step to share their story and change one person's life, including your own, because you will ultimately, then what more could you ask for in a lifetime? So don't be afraid to share of yourself and pitch yourself to a podcast, because someone is waiting to hear from you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with my new BFF, Michelle Glogovac. She is the podcast matchmaker, and she also is the CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. Until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.